Hello, today we are looking at the T57 heavy tank, one of two top-tier American heavy tanks and water tanks. The T57 was an auto-loading heavy tank with an oscillating turret, a lot like the AMX-50B we just looked at, based off of the T43, which was a pre-production M103. Work began in 1950 and the project ultimately was cancelled by 1957. Today we're going to look at the doomed American auto-loading heavy tank. Several designs were looked at, and eventually an idea for an auto-loading heavy tank with an oscillating turret was greenlit. The plan was pretty straightforward. They would use the M103 hull they already had, minus the turret, and mount a new one with an auto-loader and new crew. The advantages of having a drum system was the speed it could fire the shells in the drum and the lack of crew in the turret. The negatives were the autoloader was complicated and easy to break, and the reload of the drum took considerable time. In early testing, one major problem hampered the design, making a turret that could handle the forces created by the 120mm recoilless gun and fitting said turret on the existing 85-inch mount that came on the M103 chassis. Eventually, two prototypes were sent to Aberdeen Proving Ground to test the new turret design and gun. Major changes have been made to the muzzle size, with the original having an 11-round capacity, which proved too big, so they went with an 8-round capacity muzzle. The sides at the front were 5.3 inches, and it went down to 2 inches at the muzzle. The sides of the collar were bulbous to give extra protection to the trunnions that allowed the upper half to pivot. All of this met the required size and was able to fit on the M103 chassis without modifications to the hull whatsoever. Speaking of the hull, armor was unchanged. The beak was 3.9 to 5.1 inches. The upper plate was 5 inches at a 60-degree angle. The lower plate was 4.5 inches at a 45-degree angle, and the sides and back were very weak. The back only maxed out at 1 to 1.5 inches thick. This gun was fitted onto the turret by a conical and tubular adapter that surrounded the breech end of the gun. One part of the adapter would screw straight into the breech, and then the other side would extend through the nose, secured in place by a large nut. Because it was an auto-loading system, the ammo was single piece instead of the standard multi-piece. This meant each individual piece of ammo took up much more space, and the T57 could only hold about 18 rounds of ammunition. On the topic of ammunition, the T57 Heavy was capable of firing 4 different rounds: the T284 AP round, the T308 HEP or HEP round, the T275 HE round, and the T309 heat round. The AP round had up to 10.8 inches of penetration at 2,000 yards and up to 9.8 inches at 1,000 yards, and the heat shell had 16 inches of penetration. I want to take a moment to discuss the other tanks that spawned off of the 57 Heavy project while I was in development. For this video, we will not be discussing the T58 Heavy, because it is in the game currently as a Tier 10 Premium, so I'll be doing a video for that separately. The first tank we're looking at is the T69, which was a medium tank version of the 57 Heavy. It was based on the hull from a T42, which was a failed competitor to the M47 program. They took the hull from the T42 and then fit a smaller but similar version of the 57 Heavy turret with a 90mm gun and an 8-round autoloader. The second tank we're looking at is the T54E1, which was one of 3 T54 projects that was eventually cancelled by the late 50s. There were 3 variants, 2 of which would have had autoloaders, one of them would have been manually loaded. The 54E1 was the only one that had an oscillating turret. All 3 of these tanks would have had a 105mm gun, loosely based off of the T29's 105mm gun. All 3 of these tanks were based on a M48 patent chassis. The third and final variant we're looking at is the T57, which was based upon the M48 patent to a patent with the 90mm gun. The T57 mechanically is the closest variant to the T57 because at its core it is a T57 heavy turret stripped of a large portion of its armor to make it lighter, put on a M48 Patton 2 chassis. The idea behind it was you'd get the power of the 120mm while also getting more speed and maneuverability because you had a Patton chassis. The T57 Heavy was one of many crazy ideas in the tank world. The late 1940s through to about 1960 was an interesting time for many other countries, as their designs that were used in World War II were already quite outdated. And with Russia and China constantly making newer tanks like the T-54, many countries had to adapt and field newer tank designs. With that being said, the T-57 was doomed for a few reasons. The first was just the complexity that went into an auto-loading system. It was easy to break and needed a lot of maintenance. The second, and probably the biggest reason, was from the 50s to the 60s, many countries started fielding first-gen MBTs. And with the advent of the MBT, all you really needed was the MBT and maybe a reconnaissance tank. The time for heavy tanks and medium tanks was gone. They had instead become a liability because of their size and lack of mobility. America finished the production of the M103, the last heavy tank, and the M48 Patton, the last medium tank, before eventually, by the mid-50s, coming out with the M60, the first MBT. Thanks everybody for watching. If you like this video, hit the like button, and if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. It means a lot. If you have a tank that you want to see, put it in the comments. I'll try to get to it, and I'll catch you in the next one.